My parents said my wedding was a disaster, until they saw my mechanic husband on TV. My name is Jimena, and this story, my story, begins with the sound of a phone hanging up, the dry, metallic, definitive sound of my family slamming the door in my face. It was around 7 in the evening. I was in my apartment in Condesa, a space I had fought to make my own, my sanctuary away from them. The orange light of the Mexico City sunset flooded through the window, bathing the living room in an almost melancholic hue. That light made something on my left hand gleam. The ring. It wasn't a diamond ring. My family would have scoffed at it. It was a titanium nut, polished like a mirror, with a small sapphire embedded in the center, the exact color of Gail's overalls. It was the strangest, most industrial, and absolutely beautiful thing I had ever seen. Gail had given it to me 3 hours earlier in his workshop, kneeling on the grease-stained concrete. I was still shaking. Pure, undiluted happiness. I wanted to scream it from the rooftops, but first, I had to make the call. The call that, deep in my heart, I dreaded. I dialed my parents' house number in Las Lomas, a number that felt like dialing an ice palace. The phone rang 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Strange. Usually, Consuelo, the maid, answered on the second ring. Finally, I heard her voice, cold, sharp, as always. Yes. I swallowed. Mom, it's me, Jime. There was a pause. I could hear the clinking of ice in a glass. Jimena, how strange for you to call at this hour. Did something happen with your job? Did they finally fire you from that place? That place was my financial advisory firm. I ignored the barb. I was an expert at ignoring her barbs. No, Mom, nothing happened with my job. I'm calling about something. Something wonderful, something incredible. My voice trembled with excitement. Gail proposed. Mom, we're getting married. Silence. It wasn't a silence of happy surprise. It wasn't an, oh, really, my dear. How exciting. It was a heavy, frigid silence, a silence you could cut with a knife. I could hear her controlled breathing through her nose, calculating. Getting married, she repeated, and the word came out of her mouth as if she were spitting out something bitter, something rotten. With the mechanic. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. The way she said mechanic wasn't a description, it was an insult, a disease. Yes, Mom. With Gail. He's a good man, and Jimena, please, she interrupted. Her voice sharpened, losing its high society composure and becoming the voice of a viper. What are you thinking? This is a joke in poor taste. Because if it is, it's not funny, it's pathetic. It's not a joke, Mom. I love him. Love? She laughed. A dry, joyless laugh. What do you know about love? You know about numbers, about your green investment funds and that hippie nonsense. But about family, about prestige, about what our surname means, you know nothing. He's a man who smells of grease, Jimena. He's an embarrassment, an absolute embarrassment. Don't count on us. Don't call us for this. And then, the click. She hung up. Not even a goodbye, not a, we'll talk later, just the final, sharp sound of the line being cut. I stared at the phone, my reflection distorted on the black screen. Silence. My father, Alonso, was home. I knew he was there, listening on speakerphone. That silence, his silence, was his answer. It always was. Shaking, I dialed his personal cell. Straight to voicemail. Of course. He never took my calls directly unless it was to ask for a financial favor. A minute later, my phone vibrated. A new message. My younger sister, Dahlia. I opened the chat. It wasn't a text, it was an audio message. I pressed play. There were no words at first, just the sound of her laughter. A high-pitched, mocking laugh, the same one she used in middle school to humiliate girls who didn't wear the right clothes. It drilled into my ear, and then her voice came through, between bursts of laughter. "Jime, are you serious? Oh my God, I can't. You, marrying the guy with the wrenches? I mean, a wedding in a workshop. With what, truck tires for chairs? How embarrassing. Who the hell would go to that wedding? Invite your friends, the recycling ones." I closed the chat. Tears burned my eyes. Tears of rage. They didn't just disapprove. They boycotted. No more calls, not a single message in the following days, as if I had died, as if I had never existed. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't even begin to imagine in their superficial world of appearances and surnames, was that this mechanic they despised was a genius, a former MIT engineer who graduated with the highest honors, a man worth more than their entire fortune combined. And a few weeks after our Wadinga wedding they didn't attend when his name and our picture appeared on national television. My phone exploded. 110 missed calls, all from them. This isn't just a love story, it's a revenge story. The best kind of revenge, the kind that is served not just cold, but with success and in front of millions of people. To understand why a marriage, an act of love, could cause a level 3 family crisis, you have to understand my family. We weren't just a family, we were a surname. And in Mexico City, that surname meant something. It meant money, yes, but above all, it meant prestige. A word I learned to hate. We lived well, they live in Lomas de Chapultepec, in one of those huge, white, minimalist houses that look more like cold museums or mausoleums than homes. Everything is Carrara marble, expensive abstract art that I'm sure no one understands, and a silence broken only by the sound of silver cutlery against imported china. For them, life isn't lived, it's performed. My father, Alonso, is a real estate Midas. Or so he likes to think. He buys old buildings in the Roma neighborhood, remodels them by destroying their essence, and sells them for millions. All with his friends' money. Old Mexican money. My mother, Mercedes, is the queen of charity, or rather, the queen of charity galas. She presides over 5 foundations, organizes million-peso dinners where people go to show off their jewelry and be seen. Her picture was in the society magazines every week, smiling, always smiling, with that practiced, tense smile that never, ever reached her eyes. And then there were us, Dahlia and me. The reflection and the shadow. Dahlia, my younger sister, the princess, the heiress. Natural blonde, blue eyes, charming. She had the social grace I never cultivated. For Dahlia, everything was forgiven, everything was celebrated. If she crashed her car, and she did, 3 times Dad would buy her a new, better one. If she failed a class, Mom would go to the university and blame the professor. On her 18th birthday, they gave her a brand new convertible BMW just for existing, I guess, or for being accepted into the Anahuac University for Communications, the easiest major they could find. And then there was me, Jimena, 32 years old, the responsible black sheep. The one with dark hair, glasses, and books. The one who got a scholarship for her master's in finance because she refused to let Dad pull strings to get her into an elite private university. My rebellion was always quiet. My father wanted me to work with him in his empire. You'll handle the finances, Jimena. The money of the Parejas, the Sanchez Navarros. Real money. I refused. My job, my pride, was in a glass building in Condesa. I was a financial advisor, but not for Dad's friends. I advised tech startups, green energy funds, NGOs that wanted to do things differently. People who create things, who innovate. Dad hated it. He called it money without a pedigree. He said I was playing entrepreneur with toy money. I remember a family dinner a few years ago. The air was thick, as always. The rule was no cell phones at the table, but Dahlia was always texting under the tablecloth. She arrived late, as always, making a grand entrance. "Daddy, look. Look what Ciro got me for our 6-month anniversary." It was a handbag, one of those with a hideous logo that costs as much as a used car. 80,000 pesos. Easily. Ciro was her boyfriend, a guy from the right family who worked, meaning his parents gave him a position at the stock exchange. Beautiful, sweetie. Ciro is a good boy. He knows how to treat a lady, Dad said, delighted. Later, between the fish and the salad food that looks pretty but tastes like nothing, I mentioned timidly, "Hey, I just wanted to share that I finished paying off my car today." Silence. Dahlia was checking her Instagram under the table. Mom was adjusting a flower in the centerpiece. Dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. Yes, he read the newspaper at the table like a feudal lord. "How practical, dear," Mom said finally, without looking at me, in the voice she used for the staff. Practical. That was the biggest insult in her vocabulary. If it wasn't extravagant, if it wasn't luxurious, if it wasn't worthy of showing off at a gala, it was practical. And the practical was invisible. That was me, the practical daughter, the invisible daughter. For years, I tried to win their approval. I got the best grades. I got the best job I could without their help. I bought my own apartment. And nothing. They only saw Dahlia, the one who reflected their world, the one who was going to marry Ciro. So I stopped trying. Or so I thought. I started living my life in my Condesa apartment with my books and my music, far from the cold marble of Las Lomas. I thought I no longer cared what they thought. Until that night. Until the sound of that phone hanging up. That's when I realized that deep down, a small, stupid part of me still wanted them to be proud. And that night, as I held my titanium nut ring, that small part of me finally died. The following weeks were a blur. I went from rage to a deep sadness, and then to a kind of cold resolution. Like when you realize a business partner is stealing from you, first you're furious, then you're depressed, and finally, you start doing the paperwork to dissolve the partnership. I was dissolving my partnership with my family. Gail, my Gail, was my rock. "They're not coming," he said that same night, shrugging as he made me a chamomile tea, as if I were a broken-down car that needed a tune-up. Well, more cake for us. But I knew it hurt him too. Not for himself, but for me. He saw the pain behind my anger. The wedding day arrived. It was a bright, crisp Saturday in October. We had rented a small, hidden garden in Coyoacán. It wasn't the Las Lomas Country Club. There were no crystal chandeliers, but the air smelled of jacaranda and damp earth. We had strung festival lights between the trees. It was beautiful, it was modest, it was ours. There weren't hundreds of guests, just 30 people. Our closest friends. Gail's mother, a sweet woman with tired eyes and strong hands, who hugged me and called me daughter, as if she truly meant it, and my best friend, Sabina. I was in a small room that served as a dressing room. It smelled of old wood and dampness. The dress was simple, ivory-colored lace. I had bought it at a small boutique in Roma. It cost 1/10 of Dahlia's handbag. Sabina was doing my makeup. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from nerves about Gail, but from nerves about everything else. "Are you okay, Jaime?" she asked, holding my chin. Her eyes met mine in the mirror. "Yes." "No." "I don't know," I whispered. "It's just. It's real. They're not here. They really didn't come." Sabina pressed her lips together. She put down the mascara. "They're idiots, Jimena. Superficial snobs. All of them. I know, but they're my family." "No," she said with a firmness that surprised me. "I'm your family. Gail's mom is your family. The people out there waiting for you are your family. They are just relatives." Nothing more. My gaze drifted to the garden entrance, which I could see from the window. And there they were, 3 empty chairs in the front row. I had asked the coordinator to put them there. I don't know why. A masochistic part of me, I suppose, needed to see the physical proof, the evidence of my rejection. And there they were, 3 white folding chairs, identical to the others, but separated by a chasm of silence. Reserved with small, calligraphed signs I had made myself in a moment of stupid hope, Mom, Dad, Dahlia. The physical proof of my failure as a daughter. The irrefutable proof that I wasn't even worth an hour of their time. Jaime, let's get rid of those, Sabina said, her voice cracking. You don't have to look at that. No, I said, with a coldness that surprised even me. Leave them. I want to remember. I want to remember this every time I have a doubt. I want to remember why I'm doing this. The music started, a solo violin. It was time. Sabina kissed my cheek. You look beautiful. Now go, marry that wonderful man. She gently pushed me toward the door. I took a deep breath. My heart was beating so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. I opened the door and took the first step. I walked toward the altar alone. Every step was a hammer blow. Alone, without a proud father to give me away. Alone, without a mother crying tears of joy. Alone, without a sister to fix my veil. Just silence where there should have been love. The 30 people standing were smiling at me. Their faces were warm, but I could only see those 3 empty spaces. The lump in my throat was so big I could barely breathe. I wanted to cry. I wanted to turn around and run. But then I saw him. Gale, waiting for me at the end of the aisle. He was crying. Not discreetly, like a man from my father's family would. He was crying. Real tears were streaming down his cheeks. His eyes were red, shining, fixed on me. And his smile. He didn't see me as a disappointment. He didn't see me as a mistake. He didn't see me as practical. He looked at me as if I were everything, as if I were a miracle, as if he couldn't believe his luck. And in that moment, I knew I had made the right choice. The lump in my throat dissolved, replaced by a warmth that filled my chest and burned my eyes. To hell with them. To hell with Las Lomas, with the surnames and the cold dinners. This man who cried when he saw me walking toward him, he was my family. I reached the altar. He took my hands. They were shaking just like mine. Hi, he whispered, his voice broken. Hi, I answered, smiling through my tears. And my new life began. How did I get there? That's a good question. How did a princess from Las Lomas, educated in elite private schools, programmed to marry a banker or a politician's son, end up falling head over heels for a mechanic from Narvart? It happened a year earlier, by accident. Literally. It was a Tuesday. I was leaving a late work dinner in Polanco. It was around 11 at night, and one of those torrential Mexico City downpours was coming down, the kind that floods the streets in minutes. I was exhausted. My car, a decent but not luxurious hybrid because it was practical, of course, and because I paid for it myself, started making strange noises, as if it were coughing. And then suddenly, it died. It completely died on a dark side street near a fancy hotel, with water rising up the tires. Alone. The panic was real. My phone had 10% battery. I called my insurance. All our operators are busy. Your wait time is 45 minutes. I called 2 premium tow truck services my father had on speed dial. Estimated wait time, 2 hours. 2 hours. I'd be drowned or robbed by then. Desperate, I googled 24-hour mechanic CDMX urgent. The first result was Reyes & Sons Workshop. It had 5 stars and 200 reviews. I dialed. A man answered on the second ring. Not an operator. A man. Reyes Workshop, good evening. Hi. My car broke down in Polanco. I need help urgently. I need a tow truck. I think it's the battery, I don't know. Calm down, the voice said. It was calm, deep. He had a city accent, but it was clear. You don't sound like you need a tow truck. You sound like you need help, and you're nervous. Give me your exact location. I'll be there in 20 minutes. 20 minutes? But it's pouring. I'm used to it. Don't get out of the car. Turn on your hazard lights. I'll be there in 20. He hung up. 20 minutes later, exactly, a pristine, navy blue workshop truck parked behind me. Its lights illuminated my car. A man got out. He was tall, taller than I expected. He wore a baseball cap and overalls with Reyes embroidered on the chest. He ran to my window through the rain. Jimena, he asked. That's me. I'm going to check the engine. Don't get out. He approached with a powerful flashlight. And then I saw him clearly. He had to be my age, early 30s. Hands covered in black grease, but an incredibly intelligent and calm gaze. He wasn't the mechanic my mother would imagine. There was no vulgarity, just efficiency. He opened the hood under the downpour. It's a hybrid, right? 2017 model. Yes, how? The sound was drowned out. The alternator isn't charging the 12-volt battery, that's why everything died. The main engine seems fine. It's a sensor that got wet. Common in this model after 80,000 kilometers. I was floored. How did he know all that so quickly? He spoke about my car the way a surgeon speaks about the human heart. With respect, with passion, with an intelligence that disarmed me. In 10 minutes, in the pouring rain, with water up to his ankles, he had bypassed something, dried the sensor, and the car was running. There. It'll get you home. But bring it to the workshop tomorrow, or take it to your dealership. You need to replace that sensor, or it'll happen again. How much do I owe you? I pulled out my wallet, shaking from relief and cold. 200 pesos for the house call. That's the fee. 200. I'll give you 1,000. You saved me. Seriously. He held up a hand. Just the fee, miss. 200, he handed me a now damp receipt. Good night. Drive safe. He turned, ready to leave. Wait. I yelled through the window. Let me buy you a coffee tomorrow. As a thank you. He stopped. Water dripped from his cap. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time and smiled. A real smile that lit up his face. I'd love that, he said. My name is Gail. The next day, we went for that coffee, and it was easy. Talking to him was easy. There were no pretenses. He didn't ask what my father did for a living. He didn't care about my watch. He asked me what I was reading. And that coffee turned into lunch that weekend, and then dinner. My world of Las Lomas and Gail's world of Narvarte couldn't have been more different, but when we were together, those worlds disappeared. I discovered he hated the expensive restaurants in Polanco where I felt watched. All foam, no beer, he'd say. So our dates were real. We went to the Cineteca Nacional to see a French art film series. We argued about Goddard for hours. We went to play chess in Parque Mexico. He beat me in 7 moves, citing a famous opening. We bought ingredients at the Coyoacán market and cooked in my apartment. His hands, which knew how to take apart an engine, also knew how to make an incredible roasted salsa. We talked. Really talked. One night, I mentioned that in college I had been obsessed with philosophy, with Albert Camus. He stopped, his spoon halfway to his mouth. He looked at me, surprised. Seriously? The myth of Sisyphus. 3 times, I admitted, feeling a little nerdy. It changed my life. Mine too, he said with sudden seriousness. People think it's a tragedy. The man condemned to push a rock forever. I don't. I think Sisyphus was happy. Happy? Why? I asked, fascinated. Because he found meaning in his work. He stopped thinking about the gods, the punishment, what he couldn't control, and he focused on the rock. On the muscle, on the effort. He found purpose in the rock. I was breathless. This man, who spent his days covered in grease, understood existential philosophy better than any banker with a master's degree my mother had ever tried to set me up with at her boring galas. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Not evaluated. Not as Alonso's daughter or Dahlia's sister. Just Jimena. I fell deeply, hopelessly in love. 6 months later, I made the mistake of my life. I decided to take him to my parents' house. Are you sure? Gale asked me as he put on a blazer a friend had lent him. He looked incredibly handsome, but uncomfortable. I don't think I'm their type. I smell like motor oil even after a shower. I don't care, I said, naively. I want them to meet the man I love. When they talk to you, they'll see. How stupid I was. The dinner was a disaster from the moment we walked in. The Las Lomas house was immaculate, as always. Cold. It smelled of lilies and furniture polish. My mother, Mercedes, looked Gale up and down. Her gaze lingered on his hands. They were clean, had scrubbed for an hour, but they had calluses, small scars. The hands of a working man. I could see my mother's flicker of disgust. So, Gale, Mercedes said with that smile that didn't touch her eyes. Jimena says you're a mechanic. I have a family workshop in Narvart, Mrs. Mercedes, he said with dignity, extending his hand. My mother barely grazed his fingertips. My sister, Dahlia, let out a little laugh. Oh, how exotic. Doesn't it gross you out? I mean, the grease. I can barely touch the gasoline nozzle on my car. Yuck. Gale smiled tightly. It's an honest job, Dahlia. And no, it doesn't gross me out. My father, Alonso, ignored both of us for the first 20 minutes. He didn't even shake his hand. He kept talking about a business merger. Then, in the middle of the soup, he turned to me. Jimena, I spoke with Pereira's son. He says your green energy fund is a joke, that you're losing money. You should stop playing entrepreneur and come to the company. I need someone to handle real money, not that toy money. I felt my blood boil. My fund is not a joke, Dad. We're investing in the future. The future, he snorted. The future is concrete, Jimena. What you can touch. The rest is just air. Then the incident happened. We were on the main course. Fish. Food that looks pretty but doesn't fill you up. Gale, visibly nervous from my mother's passive-aggressive interrogation, and does that job provide major medical insurance, or just the basics? Do you have Infinavit? Brushed his Egyptian linen napkin with a finger. He left a tiny, almost invisible smudge of grease that must have been hiding under a nail. My father, Alonso, who had an eagle eye for imperfections, dropped his silver cutlery onto his plate. The sound echoed in the silent dining room. Shit, he said aloud. Mercedes looked at him, horrified by the curse word. Alonso stared at Gale. His eyes were as cold as ice. I suppose a silver fork doesn't feel natural in a hand accustomed to wrenches, does it? Gale turned as pale as the tablecloth. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Don't worry, my father continued, calling for the maid. Consuelo, take this away. And throw out the napkin. It's contaminated. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to flip the table over. I wanted to take Gail's hand and walk out of there. But I stayed silent, frozen. As always. I hated my father. I hated my mother and my sister for not saying anything, for acting as if nothing had happened. But in that moment, more than anyone, I hated myself. We didn't say a word in the car, not until we left the guarded streets of Las Lomas. The moment we hit the Periferico highway, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I burst into tears. Not silent tears, but ugly, gut-wrenching sobs, the kind that shake your whole body. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry, I repeated, my face in my hands. They were horrible. They're horrible people. I'm so sorry. Gail drove in silence. He took the exit for the old highway to Toluca, toward the scenic overlook at La Marquesa. He turned off the engine. The city stretched out below us, an infinite sea of lights. It was beautiful and anonymous. You don't have to apologize, Jimena, he said, his voice calm. Yes, I do. I yelled, my face wet with tears. They're my family, and I didn't say anything. I just sat there like an idiot while they humiliated you, while my father treated you like trash. He took my face in his calloused hands. His hands smelled faintly of industrial soap and metal. The most honest smell in the world. Jimena, look at me. I looked at him. His eyes were clear and not angry. They were sad, but for me. I knew what I was getting into. I knew who they were. I hated every second in there, yes. But I'm not angry with you. I'm angry for you. Because you've had to live with that your whole life. But I don't care what they think, he interrupted. I don't need their approval. I don't need them to like me. I'm not marrying them. He wiped a tear with his thumb. I just need you, he whispered. I just need you to trust me. For you to believe in me. Do you trust me, Jimena? Do you believe I'm enough for you? Yes, I said, my voice broken. Of course I do. You're more than enough. You're everything. Then that's all that matters, he said. To hell with them. He kissed me. A kiss salty from my tears. And in that kiss, I knew it was true. It was him and me against the world, and that was okay. We stopped trying to please them. We stopped going to Sunday dinners. My already strained relationship with my family became non-existent. We immersed ourselves in our own world. A few months later, it was a Saturday. I was helping him at the workshop in Narvart. I had learned to do oil changes and diagnose batteries just for fun. I was covered in grease, laughing because I had smudged Gail's nose with the oil filter. Hey, Jime, he said, suddenly serious, wiping sweat from his forehead. What's up? Did I break something? I asked, scared. No, it's just. You're dirty. Wipe your face. He handed me a red rag, the kind he used to clean engines. It was stiff and smelled of solvent. Thanks, I said and started wiping. I felt something hard inside the rag, something small and metallic. I opened it. There it was. The ring. The polished titanium nut with the embedded sapphire. I looked up. Gail was kneeling right there, on the oil-stained concrete, between a dismantled engine and a toolbox. Jimena, he began, his voice trembling. I started trembling too. I don't have an empire, he said. I don't have a surname. I don't have a bank account your father would be proud of. But I have these hands. And I promise I will use them every day to build a life for you, and to fix anything that breaks, whether it's a car or your heart. Marry me, Jimena. I cried, but this time they were different tears. They were tears of pure joy. I cried so much I could barely say yes. He put the ring on my finger. It fit perfectly. And that night, stupidly happy, I called my mother. And that's when part 1 happened. How ridiculous. The hang-up. Dahlia's laughing audio message. That night, Gail held me while I cried with rage. The rage of realizing that no matter what I did, no matter how happy I was, for them, it would never be enough. It's okay, he whispered to me. It's okay. We don't need them. I took my phone, opened the family group chat. Golden Family, my mother called it. I pressed Leave Group. Then I opened my wedding guest list. It had 150 names, mostly my parents' social obligations. I deleted the file. I opened a new document. I wrote, Real people. Guest list, 30 names. And for the first time, I felt at peace. Hey, a quick pause. If you're enjoying this story, if you've ever felt undervalued, please give this video a like. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, it helps us a lot. Oh, and leave me a comment telling me what city or country you're listening from. I love reading them and knowing how far we reach. Every comment helps this story reach more people. Thanks for your support. Let's get back to the story. We return to the wedding day. The garden in Coyoacán. I was standing there, behind the rustic wooden door, listening to the violin. Ready to take the loneliest walk of my life. The 3 empty chairs burned the back of my neck, even without seeing them. I knew every one of the 30 guests out there was aware of their absence. I could feel the pity in the air, and I hated it. Sabina gave my lipstick a final touch-up. Ready, Jaime. Knock 'em dead. I took a deep breath. I put my hand on the doorknob. The violin hit the key note. It was now or never. And then I heard a raspy voice shouting, Wait. For the love of God, stop the music. Stop everything. I turned, my heart in my throat. Could it be? My father? Had he changed his mind? Running down the grass aisle, his jacket flying, sweating buckets, was him. It wasn't my father. Uncle Bruno, I whispered. It was my Uncle Bruno, my father's younger brother, the family's other black sheep. The original scandal. My Uncle Bruno was brilliant, or so the family legend said. He was destined to be the senior partner at my grandfather's law firm. But one day, at 30, he threw it all away. He bought a 1968 Fender guitar and went off to play the blues in dive bars in New Orleans. My father, Alonso, hadn't spoken to him in over a decade. He called him, the failure, the bum. But Uncle Bruno was always the only one who saw me. When I graduated with honors from my master's program, my parents gave me a cold 5,000 peso check and a dinner at Literal, where they talked business all night. 2 days later, Uncle Bruno showed up at my apartment unannounced. He smelled of tobacco and whiskey. He gave me an old guitar, a used Fender. Don't let them turn you into them, kid, he told me in his gravelly voice. Your brain is worth more than their money. Don't let them put a price on you. And now he was here, out of breath, with a crooked tie, smelling of tobacco and dignity. Jaime, he panted, reaching my side. Your father is an idiot. I found out from a distant aunt, Carmela the gossip. It took me 3 hours to cross this city, but I made it. He looked at me, saw the dress, saw my teary eyes, saw I was alone. His usually relaxed face hardened. No. No way. You are not walking alone. He straightened his jacket, stood tall, and offered me his arm. Your father may be an imbecile, but a family name is still a family name, Jimena. And we family name walk in with our heads held high. Even if it's to marry a mechanic who, by the way, I like 1,000 times more than that idiot Ciro. The tears I had been holding back spilled over. I laughed and cried at the same time. I took his arm. Thank you, uncle. Really. That's what real family is for, kid, he said, patting my hand. Now, let's go give this bride away. He signaled to the violinist. The music started again. And so it was. My failure uncle, the blues musician, gave me away to my genius mechanic. It was the most perfect procession in history. The weeks after the wedding were the happiest of my life. Our life was normal, in the best sense of the word. We had breakfast together. He'd go to the workshop, I'd go to my office in Condessa. In the evenings, we'd have dinner, watch TV series, talk for hours about politics, philosophy, cars. It was a simple, practical life, as my mother would say, and it was all I had ever wanted. One Saturday afternoon, about 3 weeks after the wedding, Gale was at the workshop. He had a big project restoring a classic Mustang. I was at home, trying to organize our small shared study. His desk was a glorious chaos of papers, car manuals, strange parts, and cables. "I'm going to bring some order to this disaster," I'd told him that morning. He just laughed. "Good luck. If you find a '68 carburetor, it's mine." As I was moving his things, making piles of invoices and diagrams, I found an old wooden box under the desk. It was heavy. It wasn't locked, it was just a keepsake box, I assumed. I opened it out of curiosity. Inside, a thick leather folder. I opened it. The first thing I saw took my breath away. I literally felt the oxygen leave my lungs. It was a diploma, framed in blue velvet. Massachusetts Institute of Technology. MIT. Mechatronic Engineering. Gale Reyes. And below it, in gold letters, Summa Cum Laude. With highest honors. My stomach dropped. MIT. The same MIT my parents bragged that their friends' children had been rejected from. My Gale. My mechanic. I kept looking, my hands trembling. There was more, so much more. United States patents in his name, pages and pages of them. Incredibly complex diagrams of something called the Eagle system. Notes on predictive diagnostic algorithms for lithium-ion batteries. And emails. Printed emails. The signatures at the bottom were from venture capital funds. Sequoia. Andreessen Horowitz. Funds I knew. They were the gods of my industry, funds my own advisory firm dreamed of pitching a project to. And they were begging him. "Gale, please, take our call. We're ready for a Series A investment whenever you say the word. Gale, we understand your position, but the market is ready. Your technology is revolutionary. Gale. $10 million. Seed funding. Right now." I closed the box. I sat on the floor. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd have a heart attack. My husband wasn't just a mechanic. He was a world-class genius, a potential multimillionaire who was hiding in a workshop in Narvart. But why? Why hadn't he told me? Who was the man I had married? That night, when Gale came home, I was sitting in the living room in the dark, with the papers laid out on the coffee table. He walked in smiling, still in his overalls. He smelled of grease and metal. "Hi, love. I brought tacos al pastor." I turned on the lamp. He stopped. He saw the papers, he saw the MIT folder, he saw my face. His smile vanished. He sighed. A long, tired sigh. He left the tacos by the door. "I knew this day would come," he said quietly. He sat on the armchair opposite me. MIT was all I could say. My voice was a whisper. "Yes," he said. MIT. And then 6 years in Boston working for a defense contractor. A lot of money, a lot of prestige. Your father's dream. And I hated it, Jime. He looked at me, and his eyes were filled with a pain I had never seen. I was designing AI for drones. Autonomous navigation systems. And one day, I saw my technology on the news. In an attack. In a marketplace. Civilians died. Children. And I helped. My algorithm made it possible. I was frozen. That night, I quit. I threw up in the bathroom of my fancy office and quit. Gail. My father had a heart attack a week later, he continued, as if he hadn't heard me. The workshop was about to go bankrupt. I came back to Mexico City to help. It was supposed to be for 6 months. And you stayed, I whispered. And I stayed. I found peace. Fixing an old lady's car so she can go see her grandkids. That's real. It's an honest job. I decided to stay. The Eagle system, he pointed to the patents, is my personal project. I develop it in my spare time. Yes, it's AI. But to predict failures in cars. To save lives, not take them. A tear rolled down my cheek. That's admirable, Gail. You're the best man I know. But why didn't you tell me? Why? Why did you let my family treat you like that at that dinner? Ah, he said, a shadow in his eyes. Well, at first, I didn't tell you because I liked that you saw me, not an MIT diploma. I liked you, the financial advisor who wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty. But after that dinner. He stood up and went to the box. He pulled out another paper, one I hadn't seen. I didn't tell you because of this. He handed it to me. It was a printed email from my mother, Mercedes, sent to a high-end event planner in Las Lomas, a matchmaker for the rich. Date, 2 years prior. Subject, prospects for Dahlia. I read the text. My mother was vetting candidates for my sister. Gail Reyes's name had come up. I looked into him. The resume is impressive, MIT summa cum laude, etc. But my research shows he left everything to run a family auto shop in Narvart. What an absolute waste of talent. He is a definitive no, not our type. Let's keep looking. I looked up from the paper. Horror paralyzed me. She knew, I whispered. Yes, Gail said. Your mother knew exactly who I was when I went to that dinner. She knew about my education, she knew about MIT. And she still chose to humiliate me. She chose to laugh at me. I closed my eyes. The memory of the dinner came flooding back. The napkin. Wrenches. Contaminated. It wasn't ignorance. It was cruelty. It was a deliberate contempt, not for a lack of education, but for his choice of work. They made fun of you knowing you were smarter than all of them combined. I don't care, Jaime, he said, taking my hand. Because that same night, you, without knowing any of this, you defended me. You chose me, the mechanic. And that's all that matters. A few weeks later, everything changed. Hey, love, Gail said one morning while checking his email in our small kitchen. Remember that innovation conference they invited me to? The one for electric cars at Centro Citibanamex. Yeah, I said, pouring coffee. The one you didn't want to go to because you said it was all smoke and mirrors. Well. Turns out someone leaked my patents, and now I'm the keynote speaker. I almost dropped the mug. What? Seems one of the Sequoia investors I turned down got fed up with me and told everyone. Now they're calling me the hidden genius of Narvart. He laughed, but he was visibly nervous. And they're going to broadcast it live. On national television. I stopped. Television. As in. Televisa, TV Azteca. All of them. Apparently, I'm the big Mexican innovation story of the year. That Thursday, I was in my office. I told my team I had an immovable meeting from 10 to 12. I locked myself in the main conference room, alone, and put the live stream on the giant screen. The venue was huge. Centro Citibanamex. Packed with executives in expensive suits, politicians, engineers from all over the world. The host, a famous news anchor, announced, "And now, ladies and gentlemen, the presentation we've all been waiting for. A man who is changing the rules of the game. The founder and CEO of Eagle Systems, please give a huge round of applause to Gail Reyes." And there he was. My Gail. On stage, in an impeccable suit I had forced him to buy the week before, but with the same calm, the same solidity I saw on that dark street a year ago. For 20 minutes, he spoke. And the audience, those cynical, suited people, were mesmerized. He didn't use complicated words. He spoke with passion. He talked about the Eagle system, about how his AI could predict failures in electric car batteries with 99.8% accuracy, weeks before they happened. He talked about how it would save millions in repair costs and, more importantly, lives. It was brilliant. It was revolutionary. And at the end of his talk, he paused. He looked directly into the main camera. I could feel his gaze through the screen. "This technology," he said, his voice firm, "is based on honesty. On seeing the real value where others don't. On finding the gold in what others call grease." He paused. "And I owe that to two people. To my father, who taught me the value of honest work, even if you get your hands dirty. And to my wife, Jimena." My heart stopped. I started to tremble. She married me when, in the eyes of the world, I was just a ridiculous mechanic. My eyes filled with tears. He was using my mother's exact words. But she saw the real value. She believed in me when no one else did. And today, all of this is as much hers as it is mine. And then, on the giant screen behind him, a 20-meter wide screen, a photo appeared. It was our wedding picture. Me, in my simple lace dress, him in his modest suit, and behind us, my Uncle Bruno clapping like a madman. The image of pure, unfiltered, unluxurious happiness. "Thank you, love," Gail said, looking at the camera. "This is for you." The audience rose to their feet. The ovation was deafening. Tears were streaming down my face. Revenge was sweet, yes. But seeing his love, our love, projected for the whole world to see. That was everything. I was still crying in the conference room, alone, watching the replay of the ovation, when my cell phone started vibrating on the table. And vibrating. And vibrating. And vibrating. It wouldn't stop. It was insane. It sounded like an earthquake alarm. Calls, text messages, WhatsApps, Instagram notifications. My phone was going crazy. I looked at the screen. It was crashing. And then I saw the number. 110 missed calls. It wasn't an exaggeration. 110, in the span of 15 minutes. From Mercedes, from Alonso, from Dahlia. From aunts I hadn't seen in a decade, from second cousins who didn't even know my last name. My phone was a hornet's nest of family panic. I let it ring. I went to the bathroom, washed my face, took a deep breath. I looked at myself in the mirror. The same Jimena, but everything had changed. When I came back, I had 7 new voicemails. I sat down and played the first one. It was my mother, Mercedes. Her voice was high-pitched, almost hysterical. "Jime, sweetie, my love, answer. We just saw." "No, we didn't see. People called us. Perea's son called us, screaming. Gail on television. A genius. MIT. My darling, why didn't you tell us anything? So discreet. We are so proud. We have to celebrate. I'm organizing a dinner right now. Call me, please. I can't believe it. Proud. Sure. Proud now. I deleted the message. The second. My father, Alonso. His voice was deep, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the urgency, the greed. Jimena. Alonso. Pause. Good boy, that Gale. Very smart. I always said so. Always saw potential in him. Listen, we need to talk. Urgently. We need to talk business, about the technology. I have some ideas that will interest him. Call me. Always said so. I almost threw up. I deleted the message. The third. Dahlia. Her voice was syrupy, fake, like she was talking to a new prospect at a bar. Jaime. I mean, wow. So incredible. I'm in shock. Hey, Gale looked so handsome. I mean, a CEO. No wonder he was so mysterious. Congrats. Hey, can we see each other? I miss you so much. We have to catch up. Take me to lunch. No. Kisses. I miss you. Right. I deleted the message. I listened to all 7. They were variations on the same theme. Not a single apology. Not a, we're sorry for humiliating you. Not a, forgive us for not coming to your wedding. Not a, what idiots we were. Just, wow, he's rich. Let's talk business. And, OMG, you were on TV. I felt a deep nausea, a nausea that came from the bottom of my soul. I turned off my phone. Gale came home that night. Did you see? He asked, smiling, though he looked exhausted. I saw, I said. And so did they. I showed him the call log. He just nodded with a sad smile. To be expected, he said. Well, what should we order for dinner? Tacos? I'm starving. Tacos, I said. And I kissed him. I'm so proud of you. And I of you, he replied, for putting up with all of this. The next day, a Saturday, the buzzer rang. No, the intercom. The buzzer to my apartment. Someone had let them past security. Gale and I looked at each other over our coffee cups. We knew who it was. I put my cup down. I'll get it. I opened the door. There they were. Alonso, Mercedes, Dahlia. Impeccable, as always. As if they were going to a gala, not to the apartment of the daughter they had disowned. My father in a suit that cost more than my car, my mother dripping diamonds, Dahlia in a new dress with her 80,000 peso handbag. Darling! Mercedes exclaimed, walking in uninvited. She gave me an air kiss that smelled of expensive perfume and lies. What a lovely apartment. So cozy. Cozy was her word for small. Alonso came in behind her, nodding at Gale, who was standing in the kitchen. Gale. Good work yesterday. Impressive. As if he were a business associate, not the man he had called contaminated. Dahlia came in, glued to her phone as always, but she winked at me. Hey, Jaime. You look good. They brought gifts. Bottles of Vega Sicilia wine, imported cheeses, the kind of things they had never given me. Congratulations, Jaime. What a surprise you had in store for us. Mercedes said, looking at Gale with sparkling eyes, as if he were a diamond in the rough she had just discovered. An MIT genius. And so modest. I can't believe you hid him from us. I didn't hide anything, Mom. You didn't ask, I said, crossing my arms. Alonso ignored the tension. He got straight to the point, as always. He put his leather briefcase on my small dining table. Gale, he said in his businessman voice. Your technology. The Eagle system. Impressive. I'm about to close a deal for 3 new real estate developments in Santa Fe. Smart luxury towers. I want exclusivity. Your technology in my buildings. We'll be partners. 50/50ths on the profits from that vertical. Win-win. Gale, who was leaning against the kitchen counter, looked at me. Then he looked at my father. "No, thank you, Mr. Alonso," Gale said calmly. My father's smile froze. "What did you say?" I said, "No thank you. My technology is not for sale. And especially not to family." Dahlia looked up from her phone. Mercedes stopped admiring my curtains. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Jimena," my father said, turning to me. His voice was dangerous. "Talk to your husband." I put my coffee cup down on the table. "I have a question, Dad," I said, in the calmest voice I could manage. "Just one. If Gale were still just a mechanic in Narvart, if there were no MIT, no Eagle system, no national television, would you be here with these expensive cheeses?" Silence. An absolute, dense, damning silence. Dahlia bit her lip. Mercedes looked out the window, feigning interest in a tree. And my father. His face turned red, a dark red. "I knew you'd be difficult," he spat. The fake kindness evaporated. He opened his briefcase, took out a thick envelope, and threw it on the table at me. "What is this?" I asked. "It's your voluntary renunciation of your inheritance. To everything. The house in Las Lomas, the one in Valle, the accounts, everything. Sign it. If you're going to be this ungrateful, then you don't deserve anything." I stared at him. He expected me to beg, to break, to choose the money. "Do you have a pen?" I asked. He blinked, confused. I took his own Mont Blanc pen from his jacket pocket. I opened the folder. It was 10 pages of legal jargon. I signed every single one of them without reading. On the last page, I signed with my new name, Jimena Reyes. I handed it back to him. "There," I said. "Now, if you'll excuse us, my husband and I have work to do. Close the door on your way out." Mercedes's face was a picture. Alonso snatched the papers from my hand. Dahlia stared at me as if I were crazy. They left, slamming the door. Gale came over to me, put his arms around me. "Are you okay?" he whispered. "I'm free," I said, breathing for the first time in 32 years. "I'm free." The next few months were a whirlwind. Eagle Systems became the startup of the year. Gale was on the cover of Forbes, of Expansion. We moved to a slightly larger house in Coyoacán, one with a garden, but we continued to live modestly. The money was coming in, but our life, our values, didn't change. The family disappeared. Total silence, which for me was a blessing. My phone was at peace. Until one night, 6 months later. It was 2 in the morning. The phone rang. It was Dahlia. I answered, groggy. "Dahlia? What's wrong?" "Jime. Jimena." Her voice was unrecognizable. It wasn't the syrupy, mocking voice. It was broken. She was hysterical. "Jime, help me, please. Help me." I sat up in bed. Gale woke up. "What's wrong, Dahlia? What happened? Are you okay?" "No, I'm not okay," she screamed. Ciro. Ciro was arrested. The federal police came to the apartment. They took him away. They're saying it's fraud, that he stole millions from the brokerage firm. They froze everything, Jimena. My cards, the apartment in Polanco, the car, everything. I'm in shock. The perfect stock market boyfriend was a criminal. "Dahlia, calm down. Where are you?" I said. "I'm on the street," she sobbed. "I'm literally in an internet cafe in Roma. I have nowhere to go. I called Mom and Dad. And you know what they told me?" I waited. They told me. They told me I'm an embarrassment. The word hit me in the stomach. They said this will stain the family name, that how could I get involved with someone like that? They told me they don't want me around, not to come to the house. And Jimena. I have nowhere to go. I have no money, nothing. The irony was so thick I could almost taste it. The same word, embarrassment. The same abandonment. I looked at Gale. He was looking at me with infinite sadness. He gave a slight nod. I sighed. Stay where you are, Dahlia. I'm sending you an Uber. Come here. I hung up. Gale hugged me. You did the right thing, he said. I don't know, I replied, feeling exhausted. But she's my sister. Dahlia arrived 20 minutes later. She was a wreck. No makeup, mascara streaked, shaking. She was only carrying her 80,000 peso handbag, and it was empty. I set her up in the guest room. She cried herself to sleep. Dahlia stayed with us for 3 days, and it was strange. She was humble, or she was acting humble. She washed the dishes, badly. She tried to help cook, burned the rice. She said, "Thank you for everything," with her eyes downcast. She didn't talk about Ciro or her parents. She was just there. Maybe this is good for her, I said to Gale one night as we were getting ready for bed. Maybe she needed to hit rock bottom to wake up, to realize what's important. Gale looked at me with his wise eyes, those eyes that could see through engines and people. Maybe. Or maybe she's just changing strategies. A cornered rat is dangerous, Jaime. Don't be so cynical, I said. She's my sister. She's broken. I wish I had listened to him. On the 4th day, I came home early from the office. I wanted to check on her. The house was quiet. I was about to go into our bedroom when I heard Dahlia's voice from the guest room. The door was ajar. She was talking on the phone in a low voice. Yes, Mom. No, don't worry. Everything's going perfectly. I froze. My heart turned to stone. Mom. The one who had called her an embarrassment. No, she doesn't suspect a thing. She's so easy, really. She thinks I'm super sorry and finding myself. She's so predictable. Thinks everyone is good, like her. A cold chill ran down my spine. Give me 2 more weeks, Dahlia continued. I'll get Gale to trust me. He's the media darling now. The Midas touch. If he gives me a job at his company. Just think of the PR, Mom. Brilliant CEO rescues fallen sister-in-law. Dad can use that. We'll clean up the name. We'll be back in the game. This is just a setback. My blood turned to ice. Yes, Mom. I love you too. Don't worry. I've got her eating out of the palm of my hand. I threw the door open. Dahlia froze. Her face went from pride and conspiracy to absolute panic. Jaime. It's not what it looks like, she stammered, hanging up the phone. Get out of my house, I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like my father's. Cold. Dead. No, Jaime, please. It was a joke. I was acting for my mom, to make her feel better. Now. I screamed. Take your empty handbag and get the hell out of my house, now. Dahlia tried to cry. The crocodile tears she always used. I didn't mean it. You don't know what it's like to be in my position. No, I interrupted, advancing toward her. You don't know what anything is like. You know what the worst part is. You know what the real tragedy is. That for 1 second, I was happy to have a sister. For 1 damn second, I thought I had you back. How stupid I was. Get out. I turned away, and then I heard a sound I had never heard before. A sob, but not a fake one. An ugly, real, heartbreaking cry. The kind that comes from the soul. I turned back. Dahlia was on the floor in a ball, beating the rug with her fists. "I don't know who I am," she screamed into the floor. "I don't know how to be. I don't know how not to be them. You have Gail, you have your job, you have yourself. I have nothing. If I'm not Alonzo's daughter, if I'm not Ciro's girlfriend, I'm nothing. Please, don't kick me out. I don't want to be like them. I swear I don't want to. Please, Jimena. Teach me." I stood there in the doorway. It was the first honest thing I had ever heard her say. I looked at her. It was a crucial moment. I could become my parents and throw her out onto the street. Or I could be me. I walked toward her. I knelt down. "Fine," I said, my voice trembling. "Fine. But this is your last chance, Dahlia. The very last. And you'll do it my way. No lies, no shortcuts." She looked up, her face a mess, and nodded. And so, the real work began. My father's empire collapsed. It turned out Ciro's fraud was just the tip of the iceberg. Dad, Alonso, was involved up to his neck in money laundering with those real estate developments. He lost almost everything. They lost the house in Las Lomas. Mom, Mercedes, was kicked off all her charity boards. The surname they had protected so fiercely was now synonymous with crime and scandal. They moved to a modest apartment in the Del Valle neighborhood. They had to learn to live without chauffeurs and full-time maids. And Dahlia. I kept my word. I helped her, my way. I didn't give her a job at Eagle Systems. I got her a job as a receptionist at one of the NGOs I advised, one that helped women escape violent situations. Earning minimum wage. It was brutal for her. She had to learn to take the metro. She had to make her own coffee. She had to deal with real people, with real problems, with women who had truly suffered. For the first 3 months, she cried every night. She wanted to quit 1,000 times. But she stayed. And one day, 6 months later, I went to visit her at work without notice. I saw her at the front desk, comforting a woman who had arrived beaten. I saw her hug her, make her a tea, speak to her with genuine kindness. No cameras, expecting nothing in return. That day, I invited her to lunch, and for the first time, we talked like sisters. Meanwhile, Gail and I grew. Eagle Systems went global, but we held firm. We stayed in Mexico. We started the Reyes Bruno Foundation, a scholarship for low-income students who wanted to be engineers or blues musicians. My uncle Bruno was the honorary chairman. Life went on. 2 years later. We were in the backyard of our house in Coyoacán. It was our son Tadeo's 2nd birthday. The garden was full of our friends. Sabina, Gail's mother, my co-workers. And Dahlia, who now ran the NGO's volunteer program. Uncle Bruno was playing Las Mananitas on his guitar. Halfway through the party, the doorbell rang. I went to open it. It was them. Alonso and Mercedes. They looked different. Older, tired. Dressed in normal clothes, clean, but normal. My father without his $1,000 suit. My mother without her ostentatious jewelry. In their hands, a single gift, a children's book. "Hello, Jimena," my father said. "Hi, Dad." "Hi, Mom." We didn't know if we should come," my mother whispered. Dahlia gave us the address. "We just wanted to leave this for Tadeo." They stood silently at the door. "Come in," I told them. "We're cutting the cake." They came in, greeted people timidly, sat on the grass. My father watched Gail playing with Tadeo and a small toy engine. Gail looked up, saw him, and nodded. A simple nod of peace. Later, as we were clearing the plates, my mother came up to me. "He's a beautiful boy, Jimena." "Thanks, Mom." She looked at the sky. "You've built a beautiful life. We're very proud of you, Jimena. Of both of you." I looked at her. I searched her face for any trace of manipulation. There was none. Just sadness, and maybe a little real pride. And I realized something that shook me. The anger, the rage I had felt for them for years. It was gone. There was nothing left. I smiled. A small, real smile. "Thanks, Mom," I said. "But the truth is, I don't need it anymore." She looked at me, confused, and then I think she understood. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know," she said. "And you're right." That night, after everyone had left, Gail and I were on the porch, watching Tadeo sleep in my arms. "It was a good day," Gail said, putting his arm around me. "It was a perfect day," I replied. I looked at my husband, the genius who chose honesty over prestige, and I looked at my son. My family. The one I chose. The one I built. And this time, it was a legacy worth having. It took me years and a lot of pain to stop needing my parents' approval. In the end, I let them back into my life, but on my terms. What do you think? Was I right to forgive them in the end, or should I have closed the door on them forever? Leave me your honest opinion in the comments. I'd love to read what you would have done in my place. And as always, thank you for staying until the end. If you believe a person's value isn't in their last name but in their actions, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for more real stories that remind us who we are. See you in the next one.